Hey quilters, join me today as we learn how to make envelope style pillow covers for the holidays. Hey quilters, Ellie the Quilter here. Today I'm going to be doing a crafty day here in our quilt studio for some of my own personal things. And I thought this might be a good day to kind of share my thought processes and how I come up with crafty things. I recently finished up a quilt, our checkers quilt, and I had some leftovers. That pattern, you do have some leftover scrap fabric. I do my best to not have a lot of fabric wastage, but inevitably you're going to have some. So I took some of those scraps and I pieced together an envelope style pillow cover. This is my favorite style of pillow to make, simply because there's no buttons and no zippers, and it's perfect for beginners. It's really, really easy, something that a beginner quilter could try, and it leaves a lot of room for the imagination. So for instance, I pieced together some fabric here, but this is something that maybe the pillows on your couch are starting to look a little sad, or on your bed are looking a little sad. The pillow forms are starting to get a little not as fluffy as they used to be, and you want something with a little bit of structure so that they look poofy. They look really lively and stuffed, and it just makes it look new and refreshed in your area, right? So what I've done is I have added some batting in between. I've quilted it. It gives it lots of structure, and that will help with a lot of that problem. So I'm going to be piecing some of my leftovers. If you don't want to piece, or you're still kind of new to quilting, you're not quite sure about that, and you just wanted to get, I'll give you the sizes, but if you just wanted to get one size, one fabric, you can do that too. Or you can piece it with your scraps. The only limitation is your imagination. So I make these all the time. They're really quick to throw together, and I guess I'll just show you how I'm doing mine. All right, so one of the reasons that I love envelope style, like I said, is that there's no buttons or zippers. So the way that they're constructed is you have one front piece, and that is usually the size of your pillow form or 1 inch lower. I prefer to do it the same size as my pillow, because you'll see on the back, we're gonna have lots of pulling and tugging on the seams. And the smaller that you make your cover, the more that that's going to happen, because you're trying to shove a pillow into a tiny little cover. So I prefer to make mine the same size as my pillow form. So if my pillow form is 18 by 18, which is what I'm going to be using today, then I'm going to make my cover 18 by 18. But you'll see a lot of creators will do 17 by 17, just so it's like super tight and forcing that form to really fit in there. But I prefer to do 18 by 18. So we have one fabric on the front, or one 18 by 18 square on the front. On the back, this is why I love envelope style pillows, is you just envelope. It's just an envelope. And you can see inside, here's my pillow form right in there. So you're going to be having two pieces on the back and one piece for the front. So this is just simple math, and once you have that, you're going to be able to make millions of these whenever you want. It's a great little gift to throw together if you're going to a birthday party or a holiday party and you want to host this gift or something like that. These are really great to throw together. So the math is basically whatever your pillow form is. So mine is 18 by 18. We would cut that in half. So 18 and a half is 9. And then we would add 3 inches, because you want to have an overlap so that you have that envelope and it's not really kind of pulling apart in the back like this. So for mine, 18 by 18, that's going to be 9. And then we add 3, that's going to be 12. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces that are 18 by 12. That's for my outside fabric. Let's look at our inside fabric. All right, here is our inside fabric. So on the front, you'll have that one 18 by 18 piece. You can see I've quilted it with some batting. On the back side, and I'm just using scraps, so these two don't even match, but that doesn't matter, it's on the inside. These two are going to be the 18 by 12. And you can use scraps, you can use matching fabric, you can use whatever you want, but it's on the inside, it's probably not going to be seen. So you feel free to use whatever you want. So you've seen one that I've already constructed. Let's work on one today and I'll show you how I piece it together. So I have that 18 by 18 front fabric and I have pieced together some scraps and I've cut it 18 by 18. On the back or on the inside is going to be that 18 by 18, whatever fabric you want to use, it's going to be on the inside. On the inside of this, we have one piece of 18 by 18 batting, and I'm using Pellin natural cotton batting that I had left over from a quilt. So this is all leftover scrappy fabric. This is how we end up using our scraps, is for little projects like this, and that justifies us being able to buy expensive fabric or really nice fabric because we're not letting any go to waste, right? So what you can do once you have those two pieces together with your batting in between, and maybe you spray baste it, maybe you pin baste it, it really doesn't matter. I technically don't even baste anything. I just kind of lay them together and I find that the batting just kind of holds it together and I'm able to quilt it because it's a small piece and it doesn't come apart. I'm not really too concerned about it, but if you want to spray baste it or pin baste it, go ahead and do that. You can do any kind of quilting that you want. Now, because you're going to be quilting through several layers, I would suggest using a walking foot. And sometimes the way that I will quilt these is I will add a quilting guide bar. And you can find those pretty much any sewing shop. I get all of my stuff, pretty much all of my stuff on Sewing Parts Online. And I do know that they sell those there. You can also sometimes find a walking foot that comes with a quilting guide bar. And so sometimes I'll put that quilting guide bar in and I'll do a nice little cross hatch, kind of like a checkers pattern. Sometimes I just do some quilting lines that are like really close together like this, but it's completely up to you. I've done some wavy lines, do whatever you want, as long as it's quilted down. So on this one, I've just done a lot of quilting in the middle. And I'm going to echo those same lines on the back. That way it kind of ties the front and back together. So that's our front, that's all done. On our back, we're going to have a 12 by 18 for the top. We're going to have a 12 by 18 for the bottom. So that's two. Those are going to be our outside fabrics. Our inside fabrics, we need the same two 12 by 18. So these are just whatever leftover scraps that I have, two 12 by 18. And then I also have two 12 by 18 pieces of batting. So let's start constructing this. All right, so we've already seen how I've done the front. This is all quilted, front, back, batting in between. Let's start constructing the backs. So for each of your backs, and you're gonna make two of them, you'll have your inside fabric, and then you're going to lay your batting on top of that. And you want to try and line them up well because they're all about the same size. And then we're going to lay our outside fabric for the back. So if you want both sides to be really nice, you would want this to be the right side going down, and then your batting, and then the right side facing up. Now I've already attached my quilting guide bar, and I'm gonna set it maybe an inch, inch and a half, and I'm just gonna start quilting. I'm going to be doing mine lengthwise to kind of mirror the quilting that I have on the front. Just so you can see how I've done the first row, I just used the edge of my walking foot to tack it down here. This is going to be a really great guide for me because our next step is going to be to fold this over, and I'm going to very carefully sew along the edge there, and that will create a hem for us. So I'm just going to fold this over as I go along. You can press it also, that will make it easier for you if you want. And I will back stitch and sew this little hem. And I just fold over as I go, using that line that I sewed as the line for what I need to fold over. And then back stitch at the end. Now, just in case your walking foot is different than mine, this seam is probably about a 3/8 seam from the edge of my walking foot, and then I folded that over. So this will give us a little hem on the front. It is raw on the back, so if you don't like that, you might want to cut your front fabric a little bit longer. Maybe you do 18.5 or so, and then that way you can fold the front fabric and do a double hem on to the back of this fabric. So now that I have that, I'm just gonna start using the edge of my walking foot along this hem, this seam right here, and I'm going to just quilt this way. Okay, so there we have one line down, and I'm just going to keep on going this way. Once we have our front and both of our backs quilted, it's time to start constructing our pillow. So we're going to take the front side and lay it right side up. And then our two back pieces are going to go right side down because we want to see all the beautiful fabrics together. Now, when you put your backs on, you're going to want to line them up on the edge and the bottom, but make sure that the hemmed edges go into the center. Once we have that done, you can pin or clip all the way around. I like to use these Wonder Clip style clips that I got off Amazon for probably less than $10. And I'm going to clip all the way around. All right, now we're ready to begin sewing it together. You are definitely going to need a walking foot for this part of the process, and I would definitely suggest changing your stitch length to a longer stitch length, maybe a 3 or 4, depending on your sewing machine, the types of fabric and batting that you use. If you try to use a regular 2 for your stitch length, you are going to find that it gets really bogged down because you're not having enough length in there to get to the next step. You're also going to want to backstitch several times where your fronts and backs and your two back pieces overlap. These are going to get the most wear and tear because you're going to be pulling on it and trying to separate them. And so you definitely want to have on all of your overlap area a lot of back stitching and make sure this is stitched down really, really well. I also like to use about a 5/8 or maybe a 1/2 inch as my seam allowance all the way around. And that way there's no chance that my seams are going to start to pull apart. Now it doesn't really matter where you start in here because you don't have to leave a hole for turning. This is going to be your hole for turning. So it's really simple just to start wherever you want and sew all the way around. Take off my guide bar. Don't need that anymore. And this is our chunky fellow that we're going to work into our walking foot and get going here. Once we are done, we've sewn all the way around. Just double check that you didn't miss any. All your fabric has been sewn down, and then we can cut off the corners. Now, don't confuse one of your quilting lines with one of your sewn corners here. We want to stay obviously outside of that area. So this is my quilting line here. This is my sewing line from when I pieced the two together. And I'm going to stay outside of that and just cut off the corner a little bit. Oops, missed that part. I'll do that on all 4 corners. You don't need to get super close to your line. You just want to take some of the bulk out of that so that when we turn it, you don't have all of that fabric bunched up in there. Okay, and now we can turn it inside out and see our finished pillow cover. Now, I just like to use my finger. I have a little bit of a rounded corner there. I'm okay with that. Some people want to get really, really, really crisp corners, and so they might use a purple thing if you've seen those. I sometimes will use a paintbrush that I have laying around that I clean out my machine with sometimes. You can use pretty much anything. I've seen people use chopsticks, anything like that. All right, let me get all this pushed out. All right. Now this is all completed, you might want to give it a little bit of a press with your iron on the edges here. I'm not too concerned about that. I'm okay with not having super crisp corners and lines, but I do want to try out my pillow. This is an old worn out pillow. You can see it's lost some of its fluff there. I have tossed this in the dryer many times with tennis balls. This is a very old pillow, but we don't ever want to waste, right? So we're going to shove this in our pillow form and see how it came out. There we go. I feel like pillow stuffing's an Olympic sport at this point. All right. So here we go. It has definitely provided a lot of structure to it. This feels a lot more solid than that pillow that I put in there. I have a few inches of overlap here, so that's great. You can kind of tuck this on up in there, tuck this down, gives it lots of great structure there. But just keep fussing with your pillow form inside there till you get it all filled out in the corners. And look at that, a gorgeous little Christmas pillow for you.